Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is Thursday, March 11th, 2021. Hope everyone is having a great week. Thanks for tuning in to our Grand Solar Minimum news update. Let's get started with some space weather. A little bit to talk about. Our solar wind speeds coming in around 381.2 kilometers per second with a density of 6.0. We are facing, believe it or not, just one sunspot right now, and that is AR 2808. And believe it or not, that is the bright region sunspot in the northeastern limb. I will show you that here in a bit when we go over to space weather section over at grandsolarminimum.com. But this sunspot does pose a threat for minor C-class solar flares. Being enough. And also, we are waiting on a CIR, which is a co-rotating interaction region. NOAA forecasters say that a CIR could hit Earth's magnetic field on March 13th. CIRs are transition zones between slow and fast-moving solar wind stream. Solar wind stream plasma piles up in these regions, producing shock-like structures that sometimes mimic CMEs and spark bright Arctic auroras. Also, we have seen this happen where we had a sudden shock to the magnetic field. We could expect some seismic activity on the 13th of March. On top of that is a coronal hole in the southern region that we'll have to watch as well that could be arriving around the same time this CIR. So either we're going to have back-to-back days of solar activity, like a G1 storm or something of that nature, or it's possible that we could just get it all on the 13th, and it's not a two-day event. Either way, our star is waking up, and you can see that right now too with all the bright active regions. Believe it or not, most of those are not sunspots, so that's still a bit unusual as we are well into solar cycle 25 now. We are rounding the corner and ending the first calendar year for solar cycle 25 as it begun in July of 2020. KP indices are sitting at a 1 with a 24-hour max also at a 1. The TCI, that's the Thermosphere Climate Index, that's at 5.41. That went up a little bit because of all the solar wind that we've seen over the past 2 weeks, and we continue to see events that will raise solar wind to our Earth magnetic field, and we see a lot of times that does kind of keep things up a little bit at the top of our atmosphere when we do receive those highly charged particles moving at a very fast rate when it collides with our atmosphere. So that is the reasoning for the slight increase of TCI. Cosmic radiation dosage rates right now at 8.8%. Last week or earlier in the week, we've been running at the 9.5 range. So that's back to deep solar minimum conditions, but they have dropped a little bit over the past couple of days. We're back at 8.8%. That's a drop on the 7-day change at 0.2%. But nonetheless, 8.8% is still a very high rate of cosmic radiation dosage that we are receiving in our atmosphere. All right, so let's go ahead and 32 days without sunspots. 46% of this year so far has been spotless. Solar cycle 25 definitely waking up. Let's go check out some more stats over at the grandsolarminimum.com. We'll go to our space weather section on our website. Here we go. As you can see, the solar proton flux, everything else, geomagnetic activity, very, very quiet. Nothing really to speak of. KP indices at 0 most of the day yesterday and have struggled to stay at 1. So let's take a look. What is a sunspot and what is not? This is, well, wait, hold on. You can see it better on this. No, don't wait. We can't. But if we can, I'll show you. I'll pause it. Having a lot of issues tonight with some of these videos. SDO, HelioViewer, also having some issues tonight. That's why you saw the different, and this right here is struggling to really. All right, so let me pause it right here. I can see it now. So here's where the sunspot AR2808 is. Not very big. Okay, so we see it right here, where the tip of the arrow is next to it. It is sunspot number 11. So when we see the 193 angstrom, which I'll show you here in a minute, these things look real bright and all that and massive. But when we get down to the nitty gritty, like I said, this is sunspot number 11. This is a very weak solar minimum sunspot. And I always raise the question, when we have sunspots like this, because to me, I don't even know if this really counts as a sunspot. Really small. Not only that, but I'm almost positive that during the Dalton minimum and during the Maunder minimum, sunspots this small weren't always picked up. So we got to keep that in mind as well. And when we look at the years past grand solar minimum, and we see how low the numbers are, and what our projected forecast is going to be, I think our projected forecasts are going to be more true to what we're actually going to observe versus just comparing to empirical data. So this grand minimum could be a lot stronger, or I should say a lot weaker. What I mean by weaker, I mean weak solar activity, lower sunspot counts, more coronal holes, solar wind escaping our star, affecting our magnetosphere, pushing more highly charged particles, and we know what happens with highly charged particles in the atmosphere. Not just rain and snow, seismic activity as well. Let's see if I can get the SDO in motion. See, here's where it looks impressive on the SDO, right here. This is where AR2808 is. Let me see if I can get this in motion for you guys. Like I said, having a lot of trouble with some of these video viewers tonight. This is our sunspot that's turning. These are not sunspots, believe it or not. They look like bright regions, I get it, but they don't have the dark cores that are required to become sunspots. These are just, and there was actually a little bit of a magnetic release. That might be where the CIR is coming from. Let's go ahead and back that up one more time. So we got a lot more action. I mean, the star, it looks like we've got more sunspot regions appearing. There's that, and then there's another one here. Follow the blue arrow, folks. You'll see the explosion right about right there. So twice, once over here, minor. But we see a couple of bright regions. Those are not sunspots. This is the coronal hole that we'll be dealing with some minor solar wind from that on March 13th and the 14th. So we got the CIR and the coronal hole that we're going to barely really have anything to do with. So I wouldn't expect anything too outstanding, but the combination of the two, they arrive. It just depends on the timing, how far apart these two events, the solar wind and the CIR, of course. And here is a look at the big picture. I'm all zoomed in here. Let's zoom it out a little bit, so you can see where your numbers are there. All right. The black is stereo B. We do not have contact with stereo B anymore. The 0 is Earth facing directly. This is AR2808. You see these other weaker regions. When you look at it from this angle, it doesn't look as impressive as it does on the 193. There's our next coronal hole that we could be dealing with as well. That could be here in about 6 days. That is actually on the eastern limb as we speak. And then you've got this really bright active region here in the far northeastern part of the sun. On the other side, basically, Earth opposite. That was a lot like AR2808. It started off huge, and as it became Earth facing, we saw it kind of die down to just this sunspot number 11. And that's not that big. Not for a beginning of a new solar cycle. We're still showing evidence that we're in minimum conditions still when you have sunspots as small as 11. So, you know, we saw similar events on 2808. It's not as big as I thought it was going to be. And why is that? I believe that Earth-facing sun, with the weaker magnetic connection to our star, I believe things kind of fizzle out even more as they become Earth facing when you're talking about the connection between the sun and the Earth, as we all know. Lower activity is going to lead to a weaker magnetosphere, which does not protect us as much from cosmic radiation, which allows these highly charged particles to enter our atmosphere. And what does that have to do with the weather, right? Well, here's what happens when you don't, when you have too much of these elements happening at the same time. First, let's talk about extreme cold gripping Northern European and Russia. Unusual cold record temperatures gripped the Northern European Russia region this month, with temperatures dropping to a piercing -40 below Fahrenheit. In addition to the record temperatures, frost also intensified from the Kola Peninsula to Vorkuta. And this just lists off a lot of records that were broke. Now, this was, I think, for a lot of these were temperatures that were broke for March 10th. And we had one down here, a record temperature that was set back in 1888. On the 10th, it went to -13.9 degrees Fahrenheit. That smashed that record there. Lots of cold temperatures being recorded throughout Russia. And when you're talking about -40, you know, we just had this freeze with Texas not so long ago, and I'll talk about them here in a minute too. Check out that frost. You know, when you saw the pictures of Texas with the icicles hanging off the ceiling fans, Russia said, "Hold my beer." And look what happens here. The stairwells, the guardrails, the walls, everything's got ice hanging on it. When you have temperatures like that, of course, that's probably more evidence of busted pipes and water just overflowing everywhere with snow on top of that. But nonetheless, some very frigid conditions here. And winter is winding down, thankfully. But we're getting Old Man Winter's one last blast all over the globe. And it starts here. Okay? And it's making its way around the world. That Texas deep freeze that we had resulted in about $600 million in crop loss. Yeah, on top of the fact that 4.3 million homes were without power, we also lost 30 lives. And on top of the 30 lives that we lost, unfortunately, now we're talking about citrus crops that have been lost already. At least $230 million worth of citrus crops were damaged. About $228 million lost in livestock, and at least $150 million on vegetable crops. Now it says here the data that they used was determined to determine these agricultural losses came from farmers, ranchers, and other commercial producers. And they also had to put out there that this was a conservative number that they put out there to the public about how much was lost. Folks, so we're dealing with a couple of things here. Structural damage to property that caused millions of dollars in damages, if not in the billions, for people who have lost water pipes, drywall damage, mold now, flood damage, rebuild. So many homes went through this, all right? On top of that, we lost 30 people due to this cold weather. And now we're talking about the agriculture effect on the state of Texas. So citrus could see a price hike this year in grapefruits and other citruses that have been lost due to this cold spell. Look, guys, it wasn't just for a couple of days. It was for several, 8 days at the least. So when you have 8 days of crippling temperatures below 20 degrees for, I don't know, 8 to 10 days, yeah, you're going to have some crop loss. Unfortunately, we lost some livestock as well. That's not good. Never good. But this is type of stuff that we need to be prepared for moving forward in the future. As I've always said, that we're at the very tip of the gram solar minimum. This is the very, very beginning. And if you think it's bad now, just wait. There's more. especially when we get to around 2027, we'll start noticing things like what we're seeing right now a little bit more frequent. Oh yeah, there'll be a little bit of normalcy between 2023 and 2026, but it's not going to be back to the normal that we saw in 2014, 15, and 16. It won't be that. Just by looking at empirical data and what we're observing right now, conditions, temperature-wise, I think we'll see a cooler Earth already beginning by then, even during their maximums. We won't see, and of course, I'll eat my hat if I'm wrong, but I'm sure everyone will remember, like, we'll have a scorching hot summer in Arizona, and someone will tell me, well, there's no grand solar minimum because it got really hot in Arizona this summer. Well, that's not how that works. So again, folks, cooling is decadal. This is going to take time, but we are already starting to see the effects of grand solar minimum, and there is going to be more articles like this to talk about, because what we're dealing with right now is nice. There's a lot of spring weather going on right now, but this is just a faux spring for some of us. I'll go on here in a minute. Significant explosive eruption at Sengay volcano, ash plume of 41,000 feet. So Etna, we had, I think it was Merapi. We've had 40,000 eruption. We've had at least 40,000 eruption foot ash plume clouds in just 2 weeks. We also have all the earthquakes in Iceland. 35,000 earthquakes, folks, in Iceland over the past 2 or so weeks. Amazing. This planet is rocking. And I mentioned this the other day, and folks, John Casey talks about it in his book Upheaval, and the increased seismic activity that we're going to see between now and 2037. I believe, when I say now, I was starting with 2017 and up. But we definitely started seeing things going up. When Kilauea went off, that was like the appetizer. Okay, that was just something fun to watch. That's a spectacle. Wasn't fun for people who lost their homes and houses out there. But that was nothing compared to what some of these other volcanoes are capable of. Fortunately, not a catastrophic situation in Kilauea, but those eruptions are normal, and hopefully, we talk about this all the time too, about building around the oceans and these catastrophic zones where we could see these eruptions and whatnot. So hopefully we're not developing neighborhoods that could be affected by such events anymore. But again, we saw several houses and cars that were engulfed by the lava flows. Does that get bigger in 13 years? Do we see another one of these eruptions in 13 years that's just as bad or sooner? Time will tell. More ash plumes today. Etna, 29,500 feet. They had a 40,000 foot eruption. They had a 30,000 foot eruption. Several volcanic eruptions with 40,000 feet or higher ash plumes. And then we had two kind of cool off with 30,000 feet. Here's the third one at approximately 30,000 feet. Ash plume. Again, we are starting to see the volcanoes action right around like we did in 2018 and 2017. You guys remember how active things were getting then. It feels like it's repeating itself from that distinct point in the solar cycle. So instead of declining into the bottom, we're actually pulling out of the bottom at a very slow incline right now. And evacuations ordered as heavy rains causing flooding and dam breach in Maui, Hawaii. Again, Hawaii has been flooding over the past several years like this. I think back in 2018 was the last time we saw major floods. And now we're starting to see a repeat of what we saw back then. But this is for March 9th. Emergency evacuations have been ordered for residents in Honolulu, Haiku area of Maui, Hawaii, after heavy rainfall has caused a breach on the Kapakalua Dam on Monday afternoon, March 8th. 2021. Authorities also warned people that flooding in the area is life-threatening. California had mudslides just a couple days ago that killed people. Hawaii, they're in some bad shape right now. More flooding, evacuations. And as we get into the warmer months of the year, we shift our focus from heavy snowfall to heavy rainfall and rising rivers and dam breaches. Again, you remember all the dam issues, and that was no pun intended, that we had in 2018 because of all the moisture that we received from that winter into the spring, especially in Northern California. And of course, we're not done with winter yet here in the U.S., so we got floods in Hawaii, cold in Russia, northern European regions, volcanoes popping off, crop loss from Texas, and now one of the biggest snowstorms to hit the Denver area coming up this weekend. The storm system, an upper level low pressure system, is going to wreak havoc over a narrow strip over the Four Corners regions, but there will be lots of snow to talk about. For example, they're predicting 24 to 36 inches of snow in Cheyenne, Wyoming, 12 to 24 inches in Scottsbluff, Nebraska. Fort Collins is expecting anywhere from 1 to 2 feet of snow. And Denver, Colorado, also expecting 1 to 2 feet of snow. Boulder, Colorado, surprisingly looking at 2 feet of snow possible. But there are concerns now that we could see blizzard-like conditions for this region right here, where my arrow is going. It's a very narrow path. 1 to 2 inches of snow will be possible, and the worst of this appears it's going to happen somewhere overnight, Friday into Saturday. That is when it's expected to be its worst. Again, here is where this system will start. Saturday morning, things will definitely be well underway. The heaviest amounts of snow right in here. The rest of this back here in the other blues, we're talking 6 inches tops, 1 to 3 for most of us. Frozen precipitation in these areas here. Parts of western Kansas, Goodland, Kansas, and Norton, Kansas could see 3 to 6 inches of snow. But if you live in Denver and Cheyenne, Fort Collins, that's where you're going to see the 1 to 2 feet of snow. Cheyenne, Wyoming, expecting over close to 3 feet of snow. It says here the record for the biggest snowstorm in the mile-high city has stood since 1913, when a storm on December 1st through the 5th unloaded 45 inches of snow. That's amazing. Coming in at number 2 was a storm that happened in March of 2003 that dropped 31 inches. That might happen. So this could be ranked as the 3rd or 4th strongest snowstorm that hit the area. Number 4 actually comes in on December 24th, 1982, with 23 inches of snow. So this is possible for Denver to reach a top 5 of all-time winter weather storms. And of course here, the April 23rd storm here, this is the number 5 storm. This is what they think they could break. This could break the 23-inch mark, which was set back in 1885. So that's a pretty impressive long running of years of not breaking that record. We're talking over 115 years at least. 125-year-old record. So again, more indications when you start seeing these 100-year storm events, these 100-year floods, these 100-year snowstorms, these 100-year cold temperature records that are broken. That's when you notice that things are kind of, we see a lot of hot weather too, but all of these big-time records that are dropping has nothing to do with man-made global warming. The time period of these records that are getting shattered, 100, 150 years, 200 years, there's no coincidence in that. It's because of where we are in solar cycles. And the Weather Channel, God bless them, a couple years ago, I caught them using solar cycles as part of the reason why we were having a cold winter back in 2019. They were explaining why it was so cold. And they actually acknowledged where we were in the solar cycle. And I'm trying to figure out, how does that work? How did Weather Channel sneak that out just one time? Because they are big time believers in man-made climate change. I mean, they talk about it all the time during their broadcasts. It's almost to the point where you can't even watch the Weather Channel anymore because of all the bad things that me and you do that cause all this climate change. I get tired of hearing that. You know, it's me and you's fault, whatnot. And this, when you follow the science and you do the research and you understand how complex the climate really is, and these people in the AGW crowd think they have it figured out. It is not that simple. There's no consensus on this whatsoever, period. And the consensus that they do have is not 97%. It's more closer to around a 5 to 15%. So with that being said, we've got this major snowstorm building in from the southwest. Here's a look at Denver's top 5 snowstorms, the ones I just listed off for you. I think it's possible that we could see them jump in at number 5. Maybe number 4. Maybe number 4. Very slim chance of them making it to number 3 or number 2. And definitely not in the cards on this storm to beat the big one here, 45.7, set back in 1913. I doubt it. But we will keep our eye on this storm moving forward here for the next couple of days, because that's going to be a newsmaker. How much snow we see, how much damage we get from this. And again, some of the farmers are getting ready to start their plant. I spoke with our good friend Matt Brose from Nebraska, and his plant starts around mid to third week of April. He'll start field work around April 1st. And he told me that the further south you go, the earlier those seeds will go in. And I know there's some areas that are getting ready for their next plant. And when you get these late season snowstorms, it's not unusual, but it really sets you back a little bit. And it could push plant back a little bit for some of these areas. It could cause some serious problems too for farmers in that region. So I'm going to keep my eyes on this. We'll be doing the crop report updates here soon. Not quite yet. It's a little too early for that. Still a lot of cold weather to get through. Unfortunately, if you're living in anywhere in the East Coast, the Northeast, you're experiencing some beautiful weather right now. And unfortunately, it's going to be short-lived. Let's go with the precipitation first. As we speak, we've got a line of storms moving in through northwestern Kentucky into the Ohio River. Those are dissipating overnight, and into Friday, more cold air will be coming in later in the afternoon into Saturday. So that warm air that we had up here in the Northeast, up here in the capital region, we had 65 degrees. Beautiful outside. Absolutely gorgeous weather. I know it was well into the 70s in Southwest Ohio. Shout out to my brother out there in Huber Heights, Ohio, to be exact. So lots of nice weather today, but that is now, the high pressure is going to sink back into the Northeast, and it's going to bring back the dog days of March, basically. A big system forming once again. We just talked about it, the heavy snow that we're going to see in that little swath. That's our low pressure. This is going to be a slow one, guys. But that's why this area is expected to get 2 to 3 feet of snow. Look at how long this storm stays. I'll back this up. So we see it really materialize Saturday morning, start really getting heavy in that swath I was talking about. And here we are, early morning Sunday, all day, just heavy blue snow through Sunday. Look at that. This is close to the overnight hour right here. Into Monday, early Monday morning. Wow. Heavy snow, especially for Cheyenne, Wyoming. Just northwest of Denver, man. They're really going to get walloped. Denver's going to see it too, but going to be rain on the Nebraska side, South Dakota, Iowa, Missouri, Arkansas, all the way. This thing is slow to move out. Finally making its way to the Midwest by late Monday into early Tuesday. Now, there is potential for this to start off as snow in the Northeast. Look at this. We got 2 areas that we're going to be watching later next week, or early next week, I should say, on Tuesday, March 16th. We're going to be watching severe weather across the Ohio River Valley and the Kentucky and Alabama, Georgia areas. This is going to be heavy rain. It could be severe along with this as well. The temperatures are going to be a little bit up, not a whole lot, but more so in the south. But that's snow in Minnesota and Wisconsin. Look at that. All snow by the time it gets to the UP of Michigan and city of Interlaken. You'll definitely see some snowfall up there. And then, of course, in the Northeast, upstate New York, it starts as snow. And then by Wednesday morning, it turns into freezing rain. Midday Wednesday, it's just too warm for it to stay snow. But temperatures do drop again on the 17th. And we get some lingering snow showers after this storm front. So we're talking maybe 5 inches of snow in the capital region, up to 8 inches. And I can tell you right now, after a day like today, we are enjoying this thaw that we're getting. The snow is finally melting. I mean, we've had over 18 inches of snow on the ground every day since December 16th. There hasn't been a day where we had at least a foot of snow on the ground. It's been that cold. It's snowed that much. It's consistently been snowy and cold up here this year. And I know I spoke to a local farmer, and he told me that this is the first time that he has seen a winter like this in quite some time. It's been at least 10 years, he said. Maybe since 2010, which, believe it or not, that's right after the deep part of the solar minimum of solar cycle 24. So this is about a week out, and this is where I trust everything. After this is just kind of speculation. But this is the third time that we're locating heavy, severe weather possibilities in the South in the next 7 days. So buckle up in the South. Tennessee, Kentucky, Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia as well. Watch out for the wintry stuff in the Four Corners region, across parts of Oklahoma and Kansas, and lots of heavy rain moving in from the Midwest. Folks, that's snow on the back edge of that low pressure system on the Thursday, March 18th. And yes, I know, I just told my brother, I talked to him today, he says, oh, it's 70 degrees, the birds are out, blah, 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 you know. And March 19th, he might see about an inch or two of snow, followed by some cold air that will get rid of those spring good feelings, that's for sure. If you live in Southwest Ohio, that's over. Same thing in the Northeast, more cold. More cold across the Northwest Mountain region, Northern Plains states, very tip of the Northern Plains, and of course the Northeast. We'll see March cold continue. Pretty quiet in the middle to the end, third week of March, but then of course the Northwest fires up, lots of moisture, lots of snow, lots of rain along the coast of Oregon and Washington, and then moving across the Montana regions, Wyoming, looking at more late March snow along with the Dakotas as well. Another low pressure system. Look at this. GFS thinks we might have something here to watch. This is what we usually call an Alberta Clipper. I'm talking about this right here in the Great Lakes. We might have to watch that for this by the end of the month. GFS has shown a couple times where there could be some snow in that region. But the northern part of the United States wants to keep the winter weather around. Look at the amount of moisture that we're going to have in the South, though. I mean, the GFS is predicting some wild stuff here tonight, folks. Check this out. Late March. Late March. Again, I don't trust it past 7 days. But when you see a signal like this, I mean, the dip in the jet stream right here is very, very obvious. So parts of Georgia and Alabama and Mississippi, stay tuned, because this looks like a late season freeze. And not only that, but that's going to do damage to any of these farmers in the southern parts of the United States that are doing their work right now. As I said, Matt told me he starts in April 1st. States further south of him are going to start earlier. So is he talking about this region, these people here? Possibly. That's a lot of snow, folks. And it continues, 26th, 27th, that cold air stays. And the GFS really, I think we need to get a drug test for the old GFS, because I was looking at this every day. This is all of a sudden popped out of nowhere. So we are looking at some pretty wild systems that are moving in here towards the end of the month. Like I said, this is a giant ridge and fridge right here, guys. I mean, we're trying to warm up again. And then this dip in the jet stream that goes way south this late in the year. Again, this is stuff that we can expect to see more often during grand solar minimums. This is just the beginning. This is nothing. But now my concern is going to shift to the south and the central plain states. All the severe weather and then the cold air behind it. So this system right here, as deep as this cold is dropping, I'm going to be worried about this right here. I know this is almost 2.5 weeks away. precisely 2 weeks away. But and when you have this much cold air building in with this warm Gulf moisture, this is a recipe for severe weather. So this could be also our first major outbreak of severe weather, first major outbreak. We will have more severe weather, but this one could be something to talk about. And that is around the week of March 25th. That's a Thursday. That's exactly 2 weeks from today. Now, it doesn't mean it's going to happen, but I mean, these snow totals are pretty heavy to moderate. This will be a quick dumping of anywhere from 6 to 12 inches for most folks. And then there's lake effects to follow because of the cold air that's happening afterwards. So let's take a look and see what exactly is going on here. Nice, beautiful weather right now, as you see across the country. Here's Friday, dropping a little bit, warming up in the south. Here is highs on Saturday. It's hot in the south. Beautiful weather. You can almost see where that cutoff is, folks. Deep south is doing what they do. They're warming up. Rest of us, though, not so much. 40s in the Ohio, Indiana regions. That's typical March weather. Then we've got another ridge and fridge system. Very minor. That Arctic cold air, you guys can see it in the northeast. It's really making an effect or impact on the region. And that's why we're going to see temperatures back in that dreary cold March, 20s and 30s. Really warming up nicely across the south too, 17th. And then here comes that sharp cold front. And it's going to push all that warm Gulf air to the south. Look at that. Look at that. This cold front literally just says, nope. If you were thinking about spring break this year at the end of March, you have to go to Miami to get anything that resembles anything spring break temperature. Nowhere else is going to. 69 degrees is not spring break weather, okay? 81 is barely spring break weather. But look here on Monday, March 22nd, more of that Arctic air trying to spill in across the United States. Look at it, here we go. Another ridge and fridge, 25th. Severe weather outbreak possible along that ridge and fridge as this Arctic air pushes 70s up the East Coast. That'll be nice right before we get that next cold front. Look at how cold it's going to be. Classic La Nina. I'm telling you, folks, look at this. This is the effects of La Nina. And I've been saying it, Northeast, Great Lakes region, Northern Plains. We'll see later cold happen in March and maybe early April. The rest of the country should get close to normal. But even with this, I mean, daytime highs on March 27th. And this should be the heart of spring break, folks. You're talking about temperatures in the upper 60s in Miami for highs. We're supposed to be done with this stuff, I thought, right? Take a look and see why. Maybe we can see something in the polar vortex. I said the other day, this thing's done. It's over. It's tightening back up. Something's happened now to where we are looking at a much weaker polar vortex. Again, a weak polar vortex. Because that frigid Arctic air is moving across Canada once again. It is not done. And then here we go. It's going to try to fight here at the end. More cold air inserted into Western Canada and filtered through Manitoba into the lower 48 by March 25th. My goodness. So that's old man that looks like him gripping the United States too, trying to get him one more time, folks. To me, that's an impressive string of cold air on March 25th. Things are trying to heat up. We're trying to get to spring break. I just said that polar vortex has wrapped it up, folks. Apparently not. So I got to update this. This is a snowfall total just till the 22nd of March, because we do have a light system coming through on Monday through the Northeast that could drop up to 8 inches of snow. But when you factor in this system that's going to be here past the 25th, well, even that model is not showing much more than a foot or more of snow in the capital region. But that is a lot of snow on the ground for the Northeast. Again, the areas that I expected to see the snow and cold are going to get it. And then, of course, here, look at that. That's white and gray, folks. That means possibility of 40 inches or more. So who knows? GFS is favoring a possibility of 40 plus inches of snow. That could break the all-time record in Denver, 43.5, set back in 1913. So Saturday night, we'll be back on the air. We'll do another live grand solar minimum update. We'll definitely give you an update on the storm. In fact, we'll probably just track it for the most part and see what kind of snow totals we'd have through the evening. I don't really expect it to really get going, though, until Saturday night into early Sunday morning. But still, there will already be effects from this storm beginning on Saturday. So let's go ahead and plan on seeing you guys on Saturday evening for our next Grand Solar Minimum update. Also, if you guys like what we do, please consider joining our Patreon channel or just become a paid member here on YouTube. Kind of look at the $1.99 membership as a tip jar. $2 a month goes a long, long way, folks. Also, we are trying to do this every day of the week, but we're doing a lot of work at Mari's childhood home, being totally redone. So honestly, the more donations we get, the quicker we can get this project done and get into this house and be full-time on the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Because guys, let me tell you something. This tears me apart when we start working so much over there. It pulls me away from the channel. And the quicker I get this work done, the more we can spend doing these broadcasts. Because honestly, just because it's getting warmer out, or we're supposed to be getting warmer, doesn't mean there's less to talk about. We've got crop coverage to cover. We have so much to deal with. Winter weather leaking into April. Hopefully it starts warming up in the areas that need the heat so they can start to plant. But so many things to still go over. We got tornado season just around the corner, severe weather season around the corner, and then before you know it, we're right back into hurricane season. So guys, stay tuned. Please continue to show your support. We love you out there. Also, if you want a new Grand Solar Minimum t-shirt or a mask or a hat or a coffee cup, go to our Teespring store. You can click on our YouTube channel and you'll see it right there. The selection is huge. Mari has designed all the shirts. All the designs and logos were done by the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Mari, our brilliant producer and web designer and logo designer. Show her some love, folks. All right, thank you for tuning in once again to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. I want to say hello to Richard Davidson, Knife Collector. How you doing? Edward, very enthusiastic gardener. Shirley Davis, good to see you here. Let's keep Per Strandberg. Hello there, sir. Good to have you in our chat as always. Let's see. Arnold Schmidt, nice to see you, sir. Good to see you always. Anybody from the Wheelbarger camp, love having you over here as well. The more people that are aware, the more knowledge we can share. So again, guys, thanks again for tuning in to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. And stay safe, everyone. We'll see you Saturday night, 7:30. We will talk soon. Take care, guys.
Do you like this show? Give us a thumbs up. Want to support us more? Share to your favorite social media platform. Buy a t-shirt or become a Patreon. All links are in the description below.